Welcome to Midlife Matters. I'm Marie, and each week I'm joined by my friends Julie and Mindy to talk about all the topics keeping women in the middle years up at night. Today we're talking about the mental load of men. Join us as we share some of the things men have on their minds and how we can best help them to carry their unique loads. Let's get started. Listeners, today we are talking about the mental load. Only this time, instead of talking about the mental load of women, which is really most often where you hear it in reference to, we're going to be talking about the mental load of men. So we know there's not that many men that listen, but we know that sometimes wives want to understand better the mental load. And if you're not familiar with that term, mental load is the invisible, unpaid, and often unacknowledged work of planning, managing, and organizing a household, family, or work tasks. It involves the constant, round-the-clock cognitive effort of anticipating needs and remembering details, which can cause significant mental burnout. So it's basically just a lot of mental work, and a lot of times it goes unseen. So, Julie, you're the one that brought up this topic as something that you thought would be interesting, and what about it appealed to you?
I guess when we talked about mental load for ourselves, often we bring out the fact that didn't maybe the thing that we were worried about or concerned about, our husbands didn't even didn't even realize. Like that wasn't on their radar.
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't want it to look like that men don't have any mental load. I think it's just different. They care about
Mm-hmm.
different things.
Mm-hmm.
And I know that's true with my husband. He was much more of a big picture, overarching theme kind of guy, and I was worried if they were getting their vegetables,
Mm-hmm.
you know. And it's not that maybe he didn't care about that, but he was caring about other things. So I think we complemented each other, which I think is probably true with most couples. Like it's probably good that you don't care about the same things because something's going to get left out,
Mm-hmm.
you know.
Yeah.
Um, yeah.
Yeah.
So I thought it'd be good to talk about them because men get a bad rap in society today, unfairly, I think.
Yeah. Mindy, were you already thinking that, men had a big mental load, or were you surprised when you talked to your husband about it?
Ironically, Bryce is gonna be surprised to hear that we're doing this podcast.
Oh, you never mentioned it to him.
I didn't mention it to him on
Okay.
purpose. It's been interesting though. I kind of did that because there are things we've talked about over the years that
Mhm.
I have felt like Julie, I feel like men get a bad rap. We have 4 children, 3 of them are boys, and they're all adults now. And so even, raising sons into adulthood, and watching the things that they value, the things they pursue, what they spend their time on, I'm very pro men, as much as I'm pro women. So
Mm-hmm.
I
Right.
I kinda cheered, when I heard this topic. I was like, "Yes, let's talk about the guys." I've always said, I've joked that with Bryce, that's why they pay him the big bucks. He's the guy.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not the guy. Like, I'm not mature enough to do his job. So I'm excited for the topic. Talk
Yeah.
about our guys.
Yeah.
Julie, when you started thinking about this topic, you said that you used to call John Mr. Safety and kind of went through there. So why don't you tell us some of your thoughts?
He just loved planning for our safety, if I could say it that way. I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
That
Mm-hmm.
sounds a little strange, but he loved a road trip because it was like a chance to it was a challenge to how we're going to get there safely, how we're going to have everything we need. Like on the boat, it was always about safety and protection. And um, I don't know, we just teased him about it. Like we knew if John was involved, it was going to be done right.
Mm-hmm.
It was going to be done well. Like you didn't have to worry about that. So
Mm-hmm.
yeah, that was his nickname.
Mm-hmm. And along with that, what kinds of mental load do you think that involved?
Well, I just think since that's in the back of your mind, that's got to be I don't know, kind of a burden to think about these 4 people that you love most in the world and their safety and responsibility kind of falls on my shoulder. I think about it with car maintenance. Like he always wanted our kids to have a safe car. And I mean, he bought them all Subarus. Um, and he wanted them to maintain their cars. That was important to him. He was just always thinking about our safety. Like I remember this one time we were walking in a parking lot. It was at the Opry Mills Mall, known for its maybe less than safe environment. You know, like compared to
Mhm.
Brentwood, our kids were kind of raised in this bubble. We were over at Opry Mills, and I remember we were walking back to our car, and there was a man who was just walking, kind of loitering in the parking lot, like walking between the cars. Didn't really look like he had a purpose, like he wasn't
Mhm.
going to his car. And I just remember in a very firm voice, John says, "Let's get to the car. No playing around, kids." You know, because our kids were usually jumping over poles, like
Mhm.
all over the parking lot, you know, like
Mhm.
playing around, goofing around. It was like he meant business, like, "Get to the car."
Mhm.
And,
Mhm.
we all kinda knew what he meant, you know, and whereas I was just probably sauntering to the car totally, you know, unaware, and I just
Mhm.
think that, like, he just had a little antenna up for our safety, and I
Mhm.
thought, that's probably a lot to
Mhm.
that's a burden, I think, you know?
Mhm.
I think it, you know, was kind of from an overwhelming sense of responsibility and duty. I think he enjoyed that role. I think he took that on and, you know, and I
Mhm.
appreciated it. Now I feel very vulnerable and out there that
Mhm.
no one is doing that for me right now, you know.
Mhm.
Um
Yeah.
so
Yeah. Well, Mindy, what did you think about, Bryce's mental load? Like, how did you kinda get started with thinking about that?
Well, gosh, I had so many things that went through my head, simple things of, that fall under the heading of protection. I thought about him providing for our family, and even as we have kids leave, he still looks at all of them as kind of under the umbrella of his provision, in some form or fashion. I just thought about things. I thought about the, middle episode where Mike is preparing Sue to leave the house,
Oh, yeah.
and it's like he's wanting her to learn how to change the tire.
yeah.
And then, he was like, "Oh, you're dead," because she's failing all the things that he thinks she needs to know. But I thought about that because I was like, yeah, like, in other ways, I know Bryce feels responsible for raising protectors and providers in his sons and for raising, good humans and citizens and for helping Abby achieve all of her dreams and, leading her into the arms of her husband. And it's just like, I don't know, he carries this burden that I will never, ever understand, and let alone walking, on the busy side of the street when we're out walking, like, simple things that I don't
Mhm.
think about, or he sleeps close
Mhm.
to the door, or he changes the air filters, like, these and so, I don't know, I feel like there's a huge amount of things that probably he didn't like, he doesn't really say, but I recognize as I look at the things that he does.
Mhm.
Yeah, I think good men want their boys to become good men, and so that is like an underlying. I think they're always just looking for ways to, live that out and exemplify that in front of them and then to teach them, and I think for their girls, they just wanna show them what it is to be loved and how like, what they can expect, and,
Mhm.
I think our kids got older, John got better at, like, voicing that, and, I remember probably starting in college, John started calling Andrew Mandrew, and it
Oh.
kind of embarrassed him at first, and I just find that very endearing, like, every time he saw him, it's like, "Hey, Mandrew," and
Oh.
I think he really misses that now, so I actually just thought about that, I probably need to start calling him.
Oh my
But, you know,
goodness.
calling out what you see in
Mhm.
somebody, I think
Mhm.
is very
Yeah.
important. Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah. When I asked Steve about the mental load, I think sometimes we don't understand what somebody's mental load is, especially if you've divided up the household tasks and you don't take care of the same things. So if you're like split everything 50-50 down the middle, then you can maybe understand the person's mental load better than if you've kind of divided up so that one person has all encompassing categories and another person has all encompassing categories. So in our house, I wouldn't say that Steve's mental load is much to do with like home maintenance or car maintenance or anything like that, because I'm kind of the one that says, well, this is due, or we need to hire this out, or this is what needs to happen here, or, that's just kind of the way it's fallen. And I think a lot of that is because he travels and things need to be taken care of when they need to be taken care of a lot of times, not put off until he's home and has time to do them. So I think probably that's why that has fallen over the course of the last 15 years more in my lap. But the first thing he said was his job. Like, his job is a huge mental load. It's the sole source of income. And he takes a lot of pride in his work. And so it's not just keep your job, but it's how can I do well in my job? How can I make my company successful? How can I have a good reputation professionally? How can I be looking towards the future for that company? How can that reputation of the company be good? Like, how can I supervise well? How can I be a good team player? Like, all those things go into somebody's mental load of their job, but I don't really think about those things because I don't go to work every day. So I'm not even thinking about the fact that he's thinking, how can I, advance my company and have it have a good reputation or, be a good representative. I'm not thinking of that. I'm just thinking of that he's doing the tasks that are set before him. But there's more mental load behind that than just getting a job done. And then he said, you have to also have the mental load of your wife and your family. Like, are people happy? Are they provided for? Are their emotional needs met? Is there something that I should be doing? Then you add in that you have grandchildren and you want to try and have a relationship with them. You add in the fact that you have parents that are living and can start to rely on you for things and need you for things. You have siblings or siblings-in-law that need things from you. You have extended family obligations. And then also you have a lot of inboxes to keep track of, which on the first glance for me, I'm like, I don't know, is inbox really weighing on your mind? But he said, it's personal, it's professional. You have to return all these texts, return all these voicemails, make sure that you stay on top of every single thing that comes into your inbox. And I would say that my inbox is not a source of stress for me because I'm rarely getting really important things there, like time sensitive things
Right.
that if I don't do them and keep them at the forefront of my mind, then a ball is going to be dropped. So when I open my email, I might be curious about it, but it's not a source of stress for me if I haven't returned them or if my inbox has a lot of emails in them. That doesn't bother me at all. But I know that if he has a lot of unreturned or unread emails, that's a source of stress because he knows those are tasks waiting for him. And then he said you have the added mental load of personal growth. Like, everybody's saying that you have to grow spiritually and emotionally and professionally, and you have to always be growing. Like, you can't ever stay at the status quo. You have to be getting better in all areas at all times. And then he was saying physically, you're aging and you want to age well and you've got to fit in cardio and strength training and you need to look stylish to some degree because you're out in the professional world and he's not really into clothes. So that's like a mental burden. Like, oh, I might have to get out there and replace some things. Like, I didn't realize even that this was really all going on in the mind. And then, you even brought up small things like the dog. The dog is kind of a mental load. Like, if I'm not around to take care of the dog, well, now the dog is following him around and needs to go out and needs to eat. And like, what does the dog need? And then you have friendships, you have people saying like, hey, we should get together. We should do this. And then in his mind, he is trying to balance, well, I have all these other things that Marie's already talked about on the podcast that's on my mind. But men have to manage their friendships. And I don't think it's always as easy for men to manage their friendships as it is for women to manage their friendships. You have vacations that you're trying to maybe have. And then also he travels for work. So that's a lot of mental load of travel, like all my travel arrangements for work, any vacations that anyone wants to go on. When would we fit those in? How would I work and be on vacation at the same time? Like, I might not be able to take off the whole time. So is it a place where I could work remotely? Like, there's just always a lot. You add in money. If you're the only person working, then you're responsible for bringing in the money. He's primarily responsible for retirement planning, financial planning. I mean, I go to the meetings, but I'm not the driver here. Oh, and then this was interesting. He said mental load. There's even a mental load for men to like stay up on current events. You don't want to look stupid when other men ask you, what do you think about XYZ that's going on in the world? You can't just be like me, like, oh, I don't even watch the news anymore. It's too depressing. He can't say that. He's got to be up on things and know what's going on. Sports. He loves sports, but most men also expect you to be able to say who won that game, who's doing well, what do you think is going to happen in that area to some degree. Like that's a bonding thing among a lot of men, and a lot of men expect you to be able to converse on that. So I was surprised by all this stuff that came out in like a 5-minute conversation, like just a running list.
It's making me tired. Tired for Steve.
I know. It's a really good list.
Mhm.
And I think about the different men in my life that I greatly admire. Not only my husband, but my dad and my son-in-law and my sons. And it's amazing that, as responsibilities in their lives grow, or with my dad that, he doesn't have kids or grandkids at home, but every time I talk to him, he's serving someone else. And he's got a
Mhm.
bad back, and my mom's always saying, "He's doing these things and he shouldn't be doing them, but he feels like they need it." And I feel like that's the epitome right there. Is like they do what has to be done,
Mhm.
whether they have a good back or not, or whether they have time or not, or
Mhm.
whether they feel like it or not. Like emotions or feelings, it's just like, well, it doesn't matter that I don't feel like it. Like that has to be done, or they need this thing. And somehow they navigate that list that you just went through.
Mhm.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, there's
Yeah.
a lot to navigate in there. And I think that you wrote something down that you shared with us, Mindy, that they think about their legacy, what their kids see in them, what their grandchildren see in them, what people would say about them, what examples they're setting. That's a big part, I think, of men's mental load. They might not
Sure.
think about it every day, but they are thinking about it.
Yeah, one of the
Yes.
things that I thought about in provision, I had a lot of stuff there, but I thought about John, was such a hard worker, and even my boys still say, like, "I just can't believe dad went to work every day, long hours." Some things weren't ideal about the arrangement of the hours and all, but he never ever complained. Now he complained about situations, but he
Mhm.
did not complain about going to work.
Mhm.
Never. And, I mean, there were times when he was on call Christmas Day, and I was in my immaturity, I thought that was so unfair. Why did anybody have to work on Christmas Day, and what were our kids gonna think? And whereas, when we talked about mental load, I always felt a sense of guilt if I was away from my kids because that was the role I wanted to take on, was the primary, spending the most hours in the day at home with my kids. And John didn't see time away from the kids at work as a guilt-inducing thing. Like, he was fulfilling his role, and I think he thought of that as a really good thing to show our kids. Like,
Mhm.
um, like, I don't know, I think younger people today, work is kinda seen more like a necessary evil.
Mhm.
Like, it's just something you do till you don't have to do it anymore, and I just don't think John had that underlying view of work. Like, it was a good thing. It was what God created him to do. It provided for us, for our family. It contributed to the common good in the world, and it gave him a sense of fulfillment. And I think it's meant to. I mean, I think that God created us for work. And I think he really, really, really wanted for our kids to catch that, to see
Mhm.
that and not to and of course, I'm not condoning, like, workaholic,
Mhm.
lifestyle or neglecting your family or greed. I'm not condoning any of that, but just, that going to work was a good thing, and it wasn't like, "Oh, this is keeping me from you." Like, I think work today is kinda pitted against the good things of life, and it can be a good he definitely saw it as a good thing in life. And just a way that I kinda saw this play out, this is just a small example, but, like, when Andrew was in high school, it might have been between high school and college, he had this little job at McAllister's Deli, and we had planned our beach vacation, and Andrew was scheduled to work, he asked off, and he could not get off. And in my mind, I was like, "Punt the McAllister's job, this is our family, this is so important." And John said, "I don't think so. Like, he has a commitment to that job. He has a commitment to those hours. He needs to go to work." And we went on the vacation without him. And that was the hardest thing. That was the first time that we hadn't like all been together on a vacation because he was still young,
Mhm.
like in high school. And I just think that came out of that ethic. Like, no, this is not necessarily a bad thing.
Mhm.
Um, yeah. So I know that work was really something that he wanted a good view of work for our kids to catch that.
I know that's been a big deal in our house that grows with age, I guess, but, really encouraging our each of our children to get jobs. We always said, we would pay for what you needed, you get to pay for what you want, and so as soon as they were able to find a good, safe job, that was something that was really important to both of us, but I would say teaching our children financial responsibility was the bigger idea behind that. And so I appreciate that that was all part of almost preparing our children to leave the nest, that he took on some aspects of that I just didn't. I felt like I had other things to do. I want you to be good citizens of the world and nice and kind and, you know, um, socially responsible and, things like that. And he's like, I need to make sure that like you know how to pay for insurance. I need you to understand
Mhm.
what it means, to work and how to find a career that you love and, that also that you can take care of yourself and maybe some other people. And so that was something that was just real important to him that I very much appreciated. But I would say there's some men that have jobs that fall under the categories of provision, protection, community, those service jobs that take them away, either for many hours at a time, put them in dangerous, situations, police officers, firefighters, the military, and having a father and also grandfathers that served in the military. It's very humbling to see your dad in a place where it's not about you. It's maybe not even just about your family, it's about the world.
Mhm.
It's about safety, it's about, it's providing a paycheck, for our family, but he's providing something for so many other people. And so I think pastors' children, I think there's a lot of different careers that you are kind of forced to see your dad in a different light, and that's maybe good. It maybe takes them away, and I know um, I bet your children saw that in John, Julie, is that
Mhm.
he's providing a service for people, that this is also a service, it's more
Mhm.
than just a job.
Yeah, like on Christmas Day, he's like, "Well, people are in the hospital today."
Yes.
It's not that I'm wanting to be there or it's
Mhm.
unfair. This is just the reality of the world we live in, and this is the need that I serve, you know.
Right. And I think under the mental load of men is sometimes having to work a job that is not fulfilling, but it provides for your family. There's lots of people in the world that work daily jobs that they wouldn't necessarily say, I can't wait to get out of bed in the morning and get to that job. But they do it because they want to provide for their family. And so I think that is a unique mental load in doing something every day well that you don't necessarily love to provide for your family because most men do feel the mental load of provision.
Oh, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yes.
One other thing that I really appreciate about John is that I mean, we decided this early on in our marriage, but wholeheartedly supported my desire to stay at home with our kids. And he never put pressure on me at any point, like to go to work when our kids were in school or in order to have more. I mean, his salary was sufficient that I didn't need to work, but I know that he felt the pressure. He had to feel the pressure of looking around at his partners because they all made the same thing. And they all had way bigger houses than us and took more expensive vacations and owned second homes and we didn't. And I just really appreciate that we kind of decided where we would live, like at what limit we would live and not put the pressure on me. Like we could have more if you did this, like he respected my role, what I wanted to do, and he valued that and saw that as important too. But I know, it might have felt a little uncomfortable looking around at what because a lot of times people look at what you have as a indication of your success, you know?
Mhm.
Um, so I appreciate that John didn't care too much what other people thought.
Mhm. Mhm.
I thought about things like that, that he would track that people didn't notice until it, like, would fail, like, I remember John driving up from work. He always got the mail. We had this long driveway up a hill, and he would stop at the bottom, get the mail, and then pull up the driveway, and sometimes he wouldn't come right in the house. And he would be walking around the house, like, doing a full perimeter of the house, and he was looking at cracks in the foundation and seeing if the gutters were full and if that tree needed trimming, and I'm like, "See, I didn't do any of this." And then we had this drain out in the yard that would kinda clog up sometimes, and he'd have to take the cover off and flush it out, and those things were just not on my radar, and he was just always thinking about home maintenance and care and fixing things at the first sign of, deterioration so that it didn't become a bigger problem. And sometimes I even thought, did we have to see that crack? Because I didn't want to spend all that money fixing the cracked foundation. But
Mhm.
we did, So I don't know. I just appreciated that because now that falls on me and it is a huge mental load for me. So I don't know, maybe he didn't see it as a mental load, but I just feel like he had to. Like it had to feel like
Mhm.
pressure to do it because this was the house that his family lived in. This is what he was providing,
Mhm.
and that was another thing is I think he really wanted this is something that he really stressed to our kids was to be good stewards of the things God had given you because he didn't grow up with a lot. And so anything that, that had come lately from his hard work, I mean, he recognized that it was a gift from God, but that we also needed to take care of our stuff. And I am seeing that in my kids today. Like David washes his car every week and he vacuums it out and keeps it clean. And he said, "Mom, people at work think I just got this car like yesterday." And
Mhm.
he said, "Every time I wash it, I just thank Dad. I just thank Dad." Like it's so
Aw.
he just really it means a lot to him that John bought him that car. I mean, it's been several years ago now, but he goes, "I want to make it last forever because it was a gift," and, he
Mhm.
just really appreciates that, and so it's just neat to see that kinda come full circle, and Andrew does too, he, they both keep their cars really, really neat and clean.
Mhm.
I said, "Yeah, it makes them last longer," when you keep
Sometimes
keep
that's
things up.
taught, but not necessarily caught right away, you know what I'm saying?
Right, well, they're 30 and 27, so let me tell you, you
There's a couple that get reminders when they come home.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah.
Well, I will say, I remember, when the kids were young and, I would say this is before maybe I matured and recognized the load that Bryce was carrying. I just thought my load was so heavy, and so when he would walk through the door, I'm like, "Oh my gosh, these kids," and basically, driving me crazy, and he loved to just get down on the floor in his suit, and he would just toss his, briefcase and papers to the side, and he would just be rolling around on the floor. And it would give me a nice little reprieve and everything, but later we would talk and he was like, "I get so happy, for kid problems." And I was like, "What do you mean?" He said, "Well, kids are kids. They have kid problems." He was like,
Mhm.
Mhm.
he said, "I just feel like I change adult diapers all day long."
Mm.
In the mental sense, he was like, "So kid problems, I get so happy to come home." And I also remember he had very long hours, and sometimes he would go to work in the dark and come home in the dark,
Yeah.
and I would just be telling him, about the time that I kind of felt bad. I was like, "Well, we just went to the pool all day, had nap time and, went back to the pool." And he was like, "You just don't know how good that makes me feel." I was like, "I
Mm.
feel terrible saying that." He said, "No." He said, I can do what I do if you guys are happy and if you guys are succeeding and if you're having fun, then what I'm doing is working."
John
Like,
has said
but
those
he
exact words to me. He was like, "If you're
yeah,
not enjoying your life, what am I doing this for?" Like, what
yeah.
he goes, "I want you to enjoy your life," and we
Mhm.
do.
Mhm. Yes.
women are given such permission in society today to talk about their mental load. Everybody knows about it. We have all the language for it. We can get tons of sympathy for it. We can find tons of support in society for, yes, that's a lot of mental load. I don't know that there's really a place for men to talk about their mental load.
I don't know if they
would even want
would.
to. Yeah. I think that's probably part of the, like, this is my duty. This is my responsibility. Why would I complain about it? Why would I, I just think maybe because, I mean, I don't have my husband now, but with my sons, I think it's just important, and my son-in-law, to just recognize it and thank them for it and say, I see this. I appreciate that you do this. Um, I think anybody would welcome that, whether they want, whether they're looking for appreciation or not. I think they would accept that as hard,
Yeah. One like Instagram reel I saw this week that made me laugh. I don't think it applies to our husbands, but it could just apply to people in life, and this is what our husbands don't do. It said, like, my parents didn't raise a quitter, but they didn't not raise a complainer. So basically, I'll get the work done, but you'll know about how much I don't like doing it. Maybe women are allowed to get the work done, but also tell everybody how much their mental load is, basically in quotes, complaining about it, but men don't feel the freedom. And like you said, it's that duty thing. But I just thought that was really interesting because how often do I get the task done, but everyone knows how hard it was? You know what I'm saying? And so maybe recognize that just because someone isn't complaining about it doesn't mean that they don't have a heavy mental load.
Right.
True.
I know I've really prayed about, what's my role in different seasons of marriage, just to be able to recognize and try to perceive where Bryce is coming from, as much as I perceive where I'm at. And so as our seasons change and now looking at coming into empty nest, I mean, as we have walked through hills and valleys together, I have asked the Lord, like, what should I do? How can I come alongside him? There's no way I can fully comprehend or understand the load that he is bearing for me, for us, for all of us, for our future. And I would even go this far because I know Julia's living this, is that Bryce feels responsible for me for the entirety of my life, however long that may be. And
So
he's
true.
planning for that. And so he's actively planning for that. But I know I'm looking for, well, what can I do? What can I do as the wife? I guess as his wife, as his best friend. And it's really love him, comfort, be there, provide, sometimes food or just presence. And it's really just, how can I love him? How can I come alongside him? Because it's not to relieve the load, it's really just to provide him with a source of joy or comfort. Somebody's cheering him on, somebody sees him, and it's me. And I'm super excited, that I'm still married to this amazing man. And so, but yeah, in different seasons, I really I try. I'm not perfect, but really trying to see, how can I come alongside him? How can I cheer him on right now and whatever he's carrying?
Yeah, I think that, I don't know, if John had been a bachelor, I think he would have lived in a 0 lot line. He would have had no yard, no grass, probably no trees because this was all maintenance, And because he did care about things, but I think it was only like stylish things. But I think it was because of me that he cared. Like, he loved to see me make the house beautiful. He loved his beautiful house, but I don't know that he would have never had that on his own because that just wasn't, but he certainly appreciated and he thanked me. And I felt like that was a way to show him how much I appreciated, what he did for me, how he provided. Yeah, I think that was a good compliment.
I think just like we would want, if we were sharing our mental load with our husband, they probably want the same thing. So, like, I try to protect Steve's mental space. So I don't bring him things that I could take care of myself. Like when we needed a new roof, I interviewed the roofers. I found out about the roofing terminology. I called my dad. I called my brother. Then I came to him with a couple choices, laid out the information I had found, but I didn't just say, "Hey, looks like we need a new roof. Take care of that." He doesn't have time to be looking at roofers, learning about this. Like, this is not something that he needs to do because I can do it. I can learn it,
Right.
Or like when we go on vacation for a family vacation, he does not want to be involved in making the plans.
Mm.
He will make plane reservations or hotel reservations. I need to plan all the days. I need to plan the activities. I need to plan the length of time. I need to plan the dog care. I need to take care of all those things because he has too many other things on his mental load to also be doing that. And like I recognize different things about our life that I need to just be the one to step up and take that off mentally. And so I think you can listen to what is on someone's mental load. And if it's something that you could take care of yourself, then try to do it as
Yeah.
best you can, because
Yeah.
both people are intelligent enough to do it. And it may take a little bit of practice, but if you can lighten their mental load, I know what Steve appreciates is if his mental load is lighter, then he has time for more fun in his life. And he deserves to have fun too. So if I make the mental load lighter, then he has more time to spend with kids or grandchildren or with a friend or taking care of things that he finds enjoyable. If I don't lighten that mental load, he could never get up off the ground. There's so much there. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
Yeah,
Right.
definitely. I remember that's why I ended up doing the yard work because, if he was at work, late 5 days a week and Saturday was gonna be our free day, I didn't want him out there cutting the grass and trimming,
Right.
and all that.
Mhm.
Like, the kids were like, "Let's go to the zoo," whatever, and I wanted to free him up to have that time with them, and he didn't enjoy yard work. If that was his hobby, I would say, "Go out and do that,
Mhm.
like, enjoy that,"
Right.
but I knew he didn't, so I saw that as a chance to free him up and lighten his load, and kind of another way that, we worked this out was when the kids were little, John wasn't really well equipped to deal with chaos,
Mhm.
sibling rivalry, all that. Like, I don't know. He struggled with that. But he started to figure out if I just take one kid and go on a trip or a day, he loved it. Like, he really liked that one-on-one focus and interaction, and so that became a regular thing, and in some ways, that felt a little of a burden to me because I was left behind with whatever, the other 2 or whatever, but I grew to
Mhm.
really like that, and I think the kids have really great memories of that one-on-one time with him,
Yeah.
because that's just the way he was just better at that, and I think he struggled with that. So this was a good answer, like, "Okay, then let's just provide some really good one-on-one time."
Mhm.
And I had to come along to make that happen,
Mhm.
so
Yeah. Yes. I do remember a rule that we established when the kids were little. It was something that he loved and I loved. It used to drive him crazy when he would be home that the kids would bypass him to ask me all the questions. He was like,
yes.
"I'm sitting right here. Like, you're going and beating on the door. Your mom's in the shower. Like, you can ask me, you know?" And so we established a rule that every weekend, basically, um, all questions went to dad. So they would start to say,
That's a good
"Mom,
one.
mom, 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 mom." I'm like, "Oh, I'm off. I'm not on question duty today. It's dad." So they had to ask dad all the questions, and it was actually a fun thing for all of us. But I would have to say something that's been really humbling, but also really beautiful in midlife and in recent life for Bryce and I is I have always tried to release mental load from him. I've always tried to come in and provide and help and navigate and take care of and things like that. And I've always been very, very capable. The past 8 weeks when I had an injury and I became incapable, I was telling Abby this, but I could almost inwardly see Bryce as he is coming alongside me and really grieving with me, like, in this hard place that he saw me in. but almost at the same time, I could see him being like, "Yes, she finally needs me. I can finally help her."
Mhm.
He never said that out loud, but I saw it in the way he was so quick to perceive my needs, to be there, to advocate for my health in ways that I couldn't, to gently ask that I would please get him if I was not able to sleep. He would just sit with me. He didn't want me to sit in pain by myself in the middle of the night. It's just been very, very beautiful to see him in such a new way and to actually really, really need him and give him opportunity to serve me like
Mhm.
never before.
That's sweet.
Mhm.
Another thing I thought about with mental load is just that maybe men, like women, have delayed dreams or unmet desires, because of family. And I always appreciated that. I don't know that I wasn't like a golf course widow or a
I was gonna say golf.
like, and John's wouldn't have been golf, but I mean, just whatever it was, like, I felt like we were his hobby, that he was up for, "Oh, we're going to a horse show this weekend. We've got a baseball game. We've got a recital. I'm
Ooh.
there," and it
Mhm.
just he just didn't complain about that either. Like, he just and I know it wasn't because he didn't have interest. He had lots of interest and potentials for hobbies, but I don't know. I don't think he ever felt bitter or resentful that he wasn't getting to do those things. Now one hobby was boating, and he did get to do that with the family, and we all appreciated that hobby. But I would say like sailing came along later in life, and I just loved that for him because he would go sometimes on a Saturday without me. I mean, I would go a lot, but he would go by himself or he would stop on by the lake on the way home from work because he said that was just his favorite time to be out there to
Mm,
relax and decompress. And I thought, "You really earned that," you know?
Mhm.
I
right.
hate that he didn't get to do it longer, but, I mean, he did for like 10 years, so he did
Mhm.
have that. So yeah, I think that's a way is that, they do set aside fun and desires and things like that and dreams that they might have had for us, and it didn't go unnoticed. Very appreciated.
Mhm. Yeah. There's different seasons, but I feel like one of the things now is, just encouraging him to maybe pick up an interest that he had laid aside, and maybe he's not that interested
Yeah,
anymore. Maybe he won't be interested for another 10 years, but I think recognizing what somebody has laid aside and then saying,
yeah.
"Now's your time." I saw this other Instagram reel, I've seen it a couple times this week, basically to kids, young adults, like, if your parents are, in quotes, "acting wild or free," like, don't begrudge them this time. They gave up their 20s to raise you. Like, just and I felt like, that's true.
Yes,
Like, we've all given up things in certain decades, so if it's come around now that we can be a little more free or have a little more time or not worry
yes,
about that stuff anymore, cheer us
yes.
on. And that goes the same thing for your
Mhm.
husband, like, cheer them on. If this is a time when they can pick up something they laid aside, good for them.
Uh,
Yeah.
I wonder when Bryce will finally get the vehicle he wants because and me too, because it seemed like by the time we could actually afford a vehicle, we had to buy a minivan.
I know. My daughter said just this week she drives a minivan. She's like, "How long am I gonna drive a minivan?" I said, "You're gonna
Oh,
drive a minivan for at least
Talk
the
to
next 20
Mindy.
years. Like,
Yeah.
that is just your life."
Yes. I will say Bryce just picked up golf in recent years because it was something he could do with his sons.
Mm,
yeah.
And
mhm,
now it's really neat because, before you end up buying expensive clubs, they started picking up clubs at Goodwill and consignment and finding things on Facebook Marketplace. And he made sure everybody had a set of clubs that they could go play with. And so now they've, been replacing and things like that. But I mean, both of my sons are on the golf team in high school and it's something that they love to do together. And so my son-in-law also and so it's one of those things that he plays because he gets time with them.
mhm.
Mhm.
So and it's
Yeah.
become quite expensive.
Yeah, that's true.
It's more about the relationship, I think,
Woo, it's
than the
about the
activity. Yeah.
relationship. Absolutely.
Mindy, you helped us come up with some categories to think about ways that our husbands maybe lived out good examples. And one of them was like community service or church service.
Yes.
And I know that, John so desired for our kids to have a personal walk with the Lord, and I'm just so thankful that he set that example and like for our family to be in church because
Mhm.
um not just when it was convenient, not when he was well rested. I mean, I don't think the man slept more than 4 or 5 hours a night, worked, 60 hours a week, whatever. And it was just not a question like, "Are we gonna go to church today?" No, we are. Like
Mhm.
it was just that was what we were gonna do. And it wasn't in a legalistic way, it was just a priority. I like to think of it that way. Like, and I think the kids knew that. I mean, we didn't do travel sports or Molly's horse shows were on weekends, but we limited it to how many Sundays we would be gone, just because we didn't want that to kind of creep in. And John loved being on the water. We could have spent Sundays on the boat, and I just appreciate that we worshiped together on Sunday and we fellowshipped with those people who are our church family and then we served with them. And I was just kind of laughing at all the ways I was looking back that John had served. I was like, did he really serve? But like he was busy. He didn't get to teach Sunday school and be there on Wednesday nights a lot. But I remember like the church was taking a youth trip to Canada and they needed somebody to pull a trailer and he
Mm.
jumped on it. He was like, I love pulling things. So he pulled a trailer to Canada. Our kids weren't even in the youth, but he took them along. So that was fun
Mm.
for me that, I only
Mhm.
had one kid at home, but yeah, he
Mhm.
pulled this huge trailer with gear to Canada. They used to go on an inner city mission trip to Knoxville every year, and John worked in the kitchen. I'm like, he couldn't cook an egg, like,
Mhm.
and that's what he was. I have a picture of him holding 2 spatulas, and he had an apron on, and that's what he did, and he took boats to youth camp. He drove
Mhm.
houseboats. I mean, he did all kinds of stuff, and I just think those are really good memories, and our kids, grew up in a church that they had great mentors, people praying for them, speaking good things into their life, and they still do, you know?
Mhm.
Yeah.
I mean, those people still care about them, and so I just really appreciate that the sense of community that provided and the fellowship with other godly people and just teaching them the importance of worship and
Mhm.
corporate worship,
Yeah.
Mhm. Yeah, that's very
We have a
important.
because
funny
I know it would have been easy to stay in bed.
Mhm.
Being tired.
we have a funny joke in our house that's coming to an end as Nathan nears graduation, but Bryce is always under the guise of wanting to like serve the church, have a biblical discipline of tithing, and teach financial responsibility. He has always written a check for our tithe. And he's chosen to do that every Sunday, and he would always have one of the kids put it either in the offering plate or the box or however it was done. And for years, you've been able to tithe online or,
Mhm.
whatever. But he wanted them to have and see that that was part of our worship as a family. And so he wanted them to see how much the check was. Like, he wanted them to understand what it was we were doing. So a joke right now is he just was like, "Do you think I can stop writing a check?" I mean, Nathan's 18. So
He's seen
we
enough.
I know. We were because the church has called us, "Bryce, we found your check in the parking lot." Like it has flowed out of the Bible or something like that. And so he's like, "Do you think that, Nathan knows that we tithe?" I was like, "Well, why don't we ask him on the" we're driving to church and we're like, "Nathan, do you know dad tithes every Sunday?" He was like, "Yeah, one of us is always losing the check." You know? And so we're like, "Do you think it's okay if we start doing tithe online? Like, are you gonna be okay? Are you gonna understand?" And his dad. So
That's
now
funny.
every Sunday we're like, "No, Nathan, I tithe, but it was online. Okay, so do you know that?"
Yeah.
Cracks me up.
There is a lot of leading by example in the life of men, for sure.
This was just like a little example of the way that I think John felt an overwhelming sense of responsibility that I don't think my kids understood at the time. Like back in our early Disney World days, this is when Disney World tickets were a little paper card. Now they've got wristbands and things you scan and all
Mhm.
that everybody wears, but they used to just be a little paper ticket with a little magnetic strip on them. And I remember John would keep all 5 tickets in his wallet, like, even mine.
Mhm.
And I jokingly said one time, like, "I think I'm big enough to keep my own ticket." And he said, "Do you mind if I just keep them? Because then when we can just, like, scan them all, and I can put them back in my wallet, and we're good." And I was like, "Yeah, that's fine." And the kids were always like, "I want my own ticket," and he just kept them because he thought, "If one's lost, I'm the one that pays for it."
Yeah.
And these
Yeah.
tickets are, like, over $100, and he said, "I'll be the one to have to pay for it, so I'm gonna keep them." And I think that's can be hard for kids to understand. They want that autonomy and that freedom, but yet when they're not
Mhm.
responsible, um, so when the kids got older, we often went with friends and we'd split up. Like some kids were in a different park than us, and so we gave the kid the ticket, and they lost it. And we spent half the morning trying to get this ticket back.
Yeah.
Half our day was like trying to get this back. So I know there's a fine line of, like, giving your kids that responsibility, but it's really hard when you're the one, like, "They can't afford to pay for this ticket. This is gonna be me." You just wanna, hold on to
Right.
that.
That's why I carry everybody's passport because well, not Steve's, but that's why I still carry all the passports. Even though the girls were 21 this January when we
Yeah.
went, I'm like, "I'm carrying it because
Mhm.
if we lose it, who's gonna be spending their whole day figuring out how to replace this passport to get home?"
Yeah, and it's also like I only have myself to blame. I'm not gonna blame
Yeah.
you. Like, it serves a
Yeah.
lot of purposes.
Right. One thing I
Yeah.
wanna make sure that we mention is, it's not very popular to talk about gender specific roles, and there's a lot of, single moms or single dads that have to do both jobs of mom and
Right.
dad. But I think there's some things that men recognize are a little, easier for them, and when they step up and when they see those things, I just really wanna appreciate it because I know, I have a friend in Knoxville that's lost her husband, and she now works with a organization for widows, and they have work days or they have change your oil in the car days where men will come and service the oil in the
Mhm.
cars of the women who have lost their husbands or single moms or also the I just say mentorship programs. I know Bryce was always very aware and is very aware if there's the children that don't have dads, the children that don't have, a guy in their life. And so just being there, being a dad, being willing, being open, sharing of their time, um, to be there for those children. And so I just think that sometimes there's jobs that a guy can do. There's sometimes things that they can accomplish to help out where maybe there's not a guy available.
Yeah, that's a really good point, and I was gonna say something, like, along those lines, and I thought, "This probably isn't gonna be well received in today's culture," but I remember being an only child, I think I heard a lot more a conversation between my parents, because I was always listening, and I remember my dad would go to work every day, never complain, but I remember him coming home and talking about maybe some difficult people at work or hard situations, like, where his reputation was on the line or integrity issues, and, like, that mental load, and I was young and remembered thinking, "Wow, that." I'm sure I didn't think of it in terms of mental load, but I remember it just seemed really heavy, and I can remember thanking God that I wasn't a man. And, my mom did not work until I went to school, and then she worked part-time, again, just so she could have wallpaper that she wanted, not to support anyone else, and, not that my mom couldn't have gone to work if something had happened to my dad and done and not that I couldn't have gone to work as a pharmacist and supported our family if I'd needed to, but I think as a young girl, I was just probably recognizing the role that I felt better suited for, that God had equipped me for, and it wasn't going out and fighting the world. Uh, it was being at home, nurturing my children and keeping a home and, you know, I don't know, I think even then I recognized that that's the desire God had given me and that I was gonna be suited for. So,
Yeah,
not meaning to be sexist, I think it can go both ways. I think you know,
right.
I want to go to work and the man could stay home. I really do. Um, but it's just recognizing what your gifts are and what where your heart is
Mhm.
as far as recognizing what you're suited for.
Mhm.
And that's an individual thing.
I think this discussion has been enlightening, and I think we've covered a lot of ground. Listeners, we'd love to find out what you think about the mental load in men. Feel free to contact us on Instagram at Midlife Matters Podcast, or you can email us at midlifematterspodcast@gmail.com. But before we go, we want to do I'm a Fan. All right, Julie, what are you a fan of this week?
All right, I'm a fan of a series that's on PBS Masterpiece. So I have already watched the whole series, but I think it just maybe came out yesterday on just regular PBS. Like I pay for PBS Masterpiece, but I think it just came out March 21st for you to watch. It's The Count of Monte Cristo,
Oh.
which is one of my favorite movies. But this is a 9-part series. So, it took me a little bit of time to get used to it being different than the movie because I really love the movie.
Mm-hmm.
But it just goes into a lot more depth with the characters and his process. Because if you know anything about this story, he is wrongly imprisoned for a crime he didn't commit for 15 years in a horrific island prison off the coast of France.
Mm-hmm.
And, he spends that time plotting revenge and how he gets his revenge, and, um, in the prison, he meets a priest, and his priest warns him about revenge, and he doesn't heed it until and you see what happens, but it's such a good story, such a good
Mhm.
story, and it's beautiful, like, it was really filmed, I think, in, I think maybe Malta and Italy, like, the scenery's just gorgeous, and
Mm-hmm.
so it's worth watching.
All right. I've seen that advertised, so I might have to look into it.
Mhm.
Yeah. All right, Mindy, what are you a fan of this week?
This week, I'm a fan of a new sweater that Abby and I ended up buying matching sweaters when we were together because it is so adorable. It's actually by Wild Fable, and it's the women's off the shoulder sweater. And so we actually both bought the yellow and white striped one. And it is absolutely adorable. It's pretty lightweight. It's a knit. It's mostly cotton, which we both loved.
Mm-hmm.
And when we came home and showed her husband our purchase, he thought that they came from J. Crew because it looks just like a J. Crew sweater that Abby recently purchased. And so, of course, it's not. It's $30 in the store, but Abby had a coupon for Wild Fable, and so we actually got it cheaper. So she bought both of ours and used her coupon. Anyways, we both absolutely love it. It's adorable. It's a great piece to get you in the springtime, like where it might be a little bit cool in the morning. But you can also wear it if it's a little bit warm still. It's just one of those kind of springy summer sweaters. And so I'll send you guys a link, but it's my new favorite sweater.
Oh, good.
And it's striped, so I need it.
It is striped. There are other colors. I just happen to go with the yellow. I do remember seeing there's a blue and white one. Then they have some solid colors. So there's some
Did you say
different
Target?
options. Target,
Because I'm
and
not familiar with that brand.
it's literally it's a cheaper brand actually, and it's typically for younger people.
Oh,
I
okay.
would I would say.
Yeah, I think it
So
usually is. Yeah.
I don't usually even walk through the Wild Fable section, but it was on one of those tables and they were all folded and it was on like the main aisle. So we were walking right next to it and I was like, "What is that?" And it just caught both of us.
Yellow always catches your eye.
I love yellow.
Okay, I'm also a fan of a Target item. So, you know how I said you always need to get their spring line early. So, probably a month ago, I ordered this women's sleeveless linen mini A-line dress. It's by Universal Thread, which is a Target brand. And I ordered a green and white. It's really tiny green and white stripes. But I wore it yesterday for the first time. And honestly, I felt like it was so nicely made and I got some compliments on it and I felt cute in it. And so then I went and ordered another color last night. But when I went to order the other color, it used to be $28 and this week it's on sale for $19.60, which is less than $20. And I just feel like if you can get a summer dress that you could wear for less than $20, you probably need to jump on that. So,
Yeah.
Yes.
so anyways, I'll put a link to that in the show notes. And I think that you would think it's cute. And it's long enough. It's not, sometimes they can be a little bit short, but I felt like it is a mini dress, but I didn't feel like it was too short. So,
Okay. Yeah.
All right.
so anyways, all right, you guys. Well, hopefully we shone a spotlight on the mental load of men. And if any men are listening, we hope that they appreciate this. And we sure do appreciate the men in our lives.
Yes.
Absolutely.
All right. We'll talk with you next week. All right.
Sounds great.
Okay,
Bye.
We're so happy you joined us today. You can find the show notes for this episode at midlifematterspodcast.com. Also, please tell a friend about the show and help them hit the free subscribe button on their favorite podcast app. Be sure to follow us on Instagram at Midlife Matters Podcast. That's where we post pictures and stories about all the things we talk about in each episode. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you next week.